The body of Lucas Myers was found just after sunrise, half buried in the frozen mud of Redwater Creek. His legs were twisted unnaturally, like someone had broken them after death. His arms were tied together with medical gauze, tight, professional knots, and his mouth was sealed shut with a layer of surgical tape. The frost had settled across his eyelashes, giving him the appearance of someone peacefully asleep, though everything else about the scene screamed violence. The flash drive beside his stiffened hand was the only thing not touched by snow. Whoever placed it there had brushed the snow aside carefully, almost reverently. On the small black surface, someone had written in silver marker, "Victim 1. Watch." Detective Avery Locke watched the crime tech's collecting samples, her breath forming white clouds in the winter air. She wasn't supposed to be here. Redwater wasn't her jurisdiction. But the sheriff's office had called for outside help after 36 hours of arguing behind closed doors. Her presence meant only one thing. Someone wanted to bury the case, and someone else refused to let it happen. Avery knelt beside the body. The cold bit into her skin through the gloves, but she barely noticed. "Time of death?" she asked. "Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., the coroner murmured. "Strangulation first, the blunt force trauma came after. Seems deliberate." Deliberate. That was an understatement. Avery's eyes drifted back to the flash drive. Whoever did this wanted their work to be watched. And that meant they weren't finished. The county office didn't have the resources for digital forensics, so Avery used her own laptop. She inserted the flash drive, and a single file appeared. 01 final.mp4. The video opened with static, then a dimly lit room. A single bulb hung from a wire, swinging slightly, illuminating tiled walls stained with something dark. Lucas Myers was strapped to a chair, gagged but conscious, eyes wide with terror. And behind him stood a figure wearing scrubs. Medical scrubs, clean, almost pristine. Their face was covered with a blank white mask, the kind used in training drills for CPR mannequins. Expressionless, an uncanny smile molded into the plastic. "Lucas, you remember what you did," the distorted voice said. Lucas shook his head, crying. His muffled pleas were barely audible beneath the duct tape. "Not the first, not the last, just the beginning." Then the room went dark. The sounds that followed were unmistakable. Violence, methodical and practiced. When the light returned, Lucas's head hung limp. The masked figure approached the camera and leaned close. "Find the others, if you can." The video ended. Avery exhaled, her pulse hammering against her throat. This wasn't a random killing. This was the start of something planned. She replayed the last frames and froze the image. On the sleeve of the killer's scrubs were faint letters, barely visible. RWG 08. Redwater General. And the year. Redwater General Hospital closed in 2010 after a fire gutted half the building. Official reports blamed faulty wiring. Unofficially, everyone in town whispered that the fire had been deliberate. Avery requested the old employment records. The sheriff hesitated, then reluctantly handed them over. "Don't dig too deep," he muttered. "Some things here, they're better left alone." She ignored him. Sifting through the files, she noticed something strange. An entire wing of hospital staff from 2008 had short employment periods. Nurses, technicians, interns. Many stayed less than 6 months. Avery traced the names. 4 of them had died in the last 15 years. 2 had moved out of state.
and 3 were still in Redwater. One name caught her eye. Dr. Mark Ellis, disciplinary suspension 2008. Reason, redacted. Redaction in a small-town hospital file? That was almost comical. She dug deeper, finding a forgotten incident report from December 2008. The handwriting was frantic. Patient deaths unexplained. Sedatives missing. Complaints ignored. Staff scared. Something wrong in Ward C. Ward C. She felt the cold grip her spine. The video's room had tiled walls. Old tile. Hospital tile. She checked the address of Lucas Myers. He had worked in Redwater General as an EMT during 2007 to 2009. Victim 1. Which meant there would be Victim 2. Or there already was. It didn't take long. At 3:14 a.m., dispatch reported a body found in an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town. The caller refused to identify himself, only repeating, "He's in the rafters, hanging like he's watching us." When Avery arrived, she knew immediately this was the same killer. The man, identified as Brent Holloway, a former night shift technician at Redwater General, was suspended from a rope tied around his chest, not his neck. His neck was untouched, but his torso was carved with deep, precise cuts, forming one phrase: "You saw nothing." A flash drive was pinned to his shirt with a metal IV needle. Victim 2. Watch. Avery played the new video in her car. Brent was tied to a hospital gurney, screaming. The masked figure stood over him. "You all pretended for a paycheck, for comfort. They begged for help, and you turned off the lights." Brent tried to deny it, but his words dissolved into sobs. Redwater remembers, even if you don't. The last shot showed the killer placing something into Brent's hand. Avery froze the frame. On the hospital ID badge, from Ward C, belonging to a patient named Eleanor Ward. And the date, December 14th, 2008.
17 years ago. Snowfall thickened over the next few days, burying the roads and smothering the town in silence. But the killer didn't stop. Avery received a handwritten letter slipped under her motel door. "You want the truth. Meet me where the fire began. Midnight." The address was the destroyed section of Redwater General. She went alone. The burned-out hallways groaned under the wind, the charred beams casting jagged shadows across melted tile. Avery moved slowly, flashlight scanning the corners. The air was cold enough to sting her lungs. She found the entrance to Ward C. The door was marked with soot, melted plastic, and something else, something darker, long-dried. Behind the door lay rows of collapsed beds, rusted IV stands, scattered charts, half-burned. And on the far wall, written in crimson paint, "They let her die." Avery took a slow breath. This wasn't just revenge. This was a resurrection of a buried truth. Something had happened here, something the town had tried to erase, and someone wanted the world to know. The surviving staff from Ward C refused to speak. Avery tried them one by one. Nurse Helen Stark slammed the door the moment she saw the badge. "If this is about the hospital, I told them everything back then. I'm not saying more. Not now." When she asked who "them" was, the nurse froze, then shut the blinds. Orderly Thomas Briggs was trembling before she even sat down with him. "You don't understand," he kept whispering. "We were told to keep quiet. It wasn't our fault." "What wasn't our fault?" He shook his head violently. "Eleanor wasn't supposed to be there. She was admitted under the wrong name. She wasn't a psych case. She was a witness to something, a liability." "What happened to her?" He started crying. "They left her in the isolation ward. She screamed for 2 days. When she stopped, nobody checked. They said the paperwork would clean it up." "Who said that?" Briggs opened his mouth to answer, and a single bullet shattered the window. Avery hit the floor. Briggs fell sideways, blood seeping from his neck. He died before she reached him. Outside, a dark figure disappeared into the snowfall. It wasn't the killer. This shooter wanted to silence Briggs, which meant someone else knew the truth too. Avery returned to the ruins of the hospital to follow the map Briggs managed to scribble before dying. He'd drawn a crude floor plan leading to a basement room beneath Ward C. The entrance had been sealed with concrete, badly sealed. Someone had tried to hide something, not protect it. She broke the weakened slab with a pry bar. The stale air that escaped was heavy with dust and old antiseptic. Down the narrow stairwell, she found a room untouched by the fire. A locked storage chamber. Inside, Avery discovered patient files marked confidential, old cameras and tape recorders, restraints, sedatives long expired, and a metal chair bolted to the floor. It wasn't a patient room. It was an interrogation chamber, one used unofficially. And in the corner was a stack of VHS tapes labeled with years: 2007, 2008, 2008 Ward C, 2008 Eleanor. Avery's chest tightened. The killer wasn't inventing a motive. They were continuing something started long ago. The third video arrived that night, delivered in an unmarked envelope. The file name was different this time: intermission.mp4. It wasn't a murder. It was a message. The masked figure sat in front of the camera, hands folded neatly. "You're looking in the right places, Detective Locke. I've waited a long time for someone to pay attention." The voice was calmer now, less distorted. "They buried Eleanor's story. They blamed her for things she never did. They left her in the dark until she stopped screaming." A pause. "Everyone responsible will answer for it." The masked figure leaned closer. "But what you don't know, Detective Locke, is that I wasn't there in 2008. I wasn't part of it. I wasn't even old enough." Avery's breath caught. "So if you're trying to find me in the old records, you won't." The figure tilted their head. "I'm not avenging myself. I'm avenging someone I loved." And then, Victim 3 is alive. For now. The screen went black. Avery knew who Victim 3 was: Sheriff Douglas Kane. He was a deputy in 2008. The redacted files, his signature was on them. She raced to his home. The door was open. The house was silent. Inside, Kane was tied to a chair, alive but unconscious. The killer had left another flash drive pinned to his chest, and a message: "Finish what they started." Before Avery could untie him, a soft click echoed behind her. The masked figure stood in the hallway, closer than she had ever expected. They weren't tall, they weren't muscular.
They moved with precision, not strength. "Avery," the killer whispered, "you're early." Avery raised her weapon, but the figure didn't move. "You want him alive?" the killer asked. "Then listen." Avery hesitated. The killer pointed to the flash drive. He recorded Eleanor's last hours. He ordered the cover-up. He threatened the staff. He let her die. Kane stirred, choking against the gag. Avery lowered her weapon slightly. The masked figure extended a hand. "Help me finish this." Chapter 10. The Forest of Dead Witnesses. They dragged Kane into the freezing woods, to a clearing lit only by moonlight. The killer set up the camera and forced Kane to speak. The sheriff broke quickly, pathetic, sobbing, terrified. He admitted everything: the illegal interrogations, the solitary confinement of Eleanor, the threats against staff, the fire that was meant to destroy evidence. But then he said something that made Avery's blood run cold. "I wasn't the only one. There were 3 of us. 2 others gave the order. They're still out there." A shot ripped through the trees. Kane fell silent forever. Avery spun toward the sound, but the killer was already running. Not after the shooter. Away from Avery. Avery chased the masked figure through the forest, snow crunching under boots, branches whipping her face. The killer moved fast, but finally stumbled near a fallen log. Avery tackled them, forcing the mask off, and froze. The killer was young, no older than 23, a woman. Pale, trembling, eyes red from cold and grief. "My name is Mara Ward." Ward? Eleanor Ward's daughter. "I was 8 when they killed her. You think I wanted to do this? You think I enjoyed any of it?" Her voice cracked. "I wanted them to confess. I wanted the truth. I wanted her name back." Avery hesitated. Mara dropped the final flash drive into the snow. "For you. For whoever comes next." Then she lifted Avery's gun. Avery got no idea how she grabbed it so quickly, and pressed it to her own chest. "Tell them I resisted." Before Avery could reach her, she pulled the trigger. The final flash drive contained the full confession of Sheriff Kane, along with evidence Mara had collected for years: documents, tapes, testimonies from terrified former staff. Redwater General's old secrets unraveled in days. 2 former administrators were arrested. A state investigation reopened the deaths of 13 patients. Eleanor Ward's name was cleared. But none of that mattered to Mara. Avery gave her a grave with a real name. Not a number, not a file. A name. And every night after the case closed, Avery replayed Mara's final words in her mind. They left her in the dark until she stopped screaming. Now the whole world would finally hear her.